Some years aren't just dates on a calendar, they're like these massive turning points where history just pivots. Today, we're going to dive into one of those years, 1492, and the story of two rulers, a Christian queen and a Muslim sultan, whose lives collided and ended up reshaping the entire world. So here's the big question we're tackling. How on earth did this one year and this one clash between two people lead to the birth of a global empire and the complete collapse of a kingdom that had stood for 7 centuries? Let's get into it. All right, so let's set the scene. We're on the Iberian Peninsula, late 15th century. But this is not the Spain you see on a map today. Not at all. It's this patchwork of different kingdoms. You've got the big Christian powers, Castile and Aragon. And then, holding on in the south, is this last beautiful remnant of Muslim rule, the Emirate of Granada. And this is where our two main players enter the stage, on a total collision course. On one side, you have Isabella of Castile. Her ambition was just massive, forge a single, powerful Catholic Spain. And on the other side, Muhammad XII, or as the Spanish called him, Boabdil. His goal wasn't conquest, it was just survival. He was desperately trying to hold on to the last piece of Al-Andalus, all while his own kingdom was tearing itself apart from the inside, with a nasty civil war against his own family. So, to really get how this clash was basically inevitable, we first have to look at Isabella's rise to the top. She wasn't just lucky, she was a brilliant political operator, calculated and absolutely relentless. I mean, look at her path, it was all strategy. In 1468, she gets named the official heir. A year later, she makes this huge power move. She marries Ferdinand of Aragon. And look, this marriage, it wasn't a romance novel. It was about combining the two biggest Christian armies on the peninsula. By 1474, she's the Queen of Castile. And now her real project could get started. But here's the thing about Isabella. Her vision was so much bigger than just conquering land. Yeah, the war for Granada was a huge deal, but her real genius was in building the actual machinery of a modern country. She knew that if you want a unified kingdom, it has to be a well-run kingdom. So how'd she do it? Well, she created something called La Santa Hermandad, which was basically a national police force to bring law and order. She got the kingdom's finances under control by taking back royal lands and standardizing the money. And this is a big one. She totally reformed her government, sidelining the old, entitled nobles and bringing in professional, skilled people to run things. She wasn't just conquering territory, she was building the engine that would fuel the long, expensive war against Granada. So, with her own house in order, Isabella and Ferdinand could turn their full attention to that final piece of the puzzle, Granada. This was it. The grand finale of the Reconquista, this centuries-long push by Christian kingdoms to retake the whole peninsula. And the Granada War wasn't just one big battle. No way. It was a brutal, 10-year-long grind. A war of sieges, of slowly starving cities out, using the newest, most powerful artillery. It was the final, bloody chapter in a 700-year-old story. And their approach was brilliant, in a ruthless kind of way. They didn't just charge the capital. Starting in 1482, they just dismantled the kingdom, bit by bit. First, they took the west, cities like Ronda and Malaga. Then the east collapsed. By 1491, only the city of Granada itself was left, totally cut off, totally alone. After months of a horrifying siege, his people were starving, and all hope was gone. Sultan Boabdil had no other choice. On the second day of that brand new year, 1492, he rode out to meet the Catholic monarchs and perform the final, devastating act of surrender. And the words he supposedly spoke, man, they're just dripping with tragedy. As he handed over the keys to the incredible Alhambra Palace, he called it paradise. He wasn't just giving up a city, he was surrendering a whole culture, a legacy, a home. And to make it even worse, legend gives us this absolutely crushing line from his own mother, Aisha. As Boabdil looked back one last time at his lost city and cried, she supposedly said that to him. That moment is why he's often known as the Moor's last sigh. And just like that, their fates shot off in completely different directions. For Boabdil, it was the end of everything. His kingdom, his dynasty, all gone. His future was exile. But for Isabella, this victory wasn't an ending. Oh no, it was the launch pad for everything that was about to happen next. Because here's the thing you have to understand. the fall of Granada didn't happen in a bubble. It was the event that unlocked a whole series of other massive decisions in that exact same year, decisions that would completely change the path of history. 1492. Just think about that year. It's got to be one of the most significant years in the last millennium, right? And it all pivots on what happened that January. The fall of Granada was like the first domino. Just 3 months later, riding high on this victory, Isabella and Ferdinand issued the Alhambra Decree, forcing all Jewish people in Spain to either convert to Catholicism or get out. And with the war finally over, the royal treasury, while pretty drained, was no longer bankrolling a massive army. And that's what leads to the third, absolutely world-altering event. That victory gave Isabella immense prestige, political capital, and it freed up her attention. It let her finally say yes to this very persistent navigator from Genoa, a guy named Christopher Columbus, who had this wild idea about sailing west to get to the east. It was a huge risk, a gamble she probably never would have taken while she was still fighting a war. And that one gamble, wow, it paid off bigger than anyone could have possibly imagined. The conquest of Granada, immediately followed by Columbus's voyage, directly led to the birth of the massive Spanish Empire. It kicked off a century of incredible wealth and art we now call the Spanish Golden Age. One queen's ambition had literally forged an empire from the ashes of another's kingdom. Which leaves us with this one last incredible question to think about. Consider that chain reaction. If Granada hadn't fallen, maybe there's no unified Spain. If there's no unified Spain, maybe there's no money for Columbus, and no discovery of the Americas in 1492. How different would our world actually look today if, on that fateful morning, the keys to paradise had stayed right where they were?